Hello and welcome to Where the Road Rises, Law Lessons Legacy, with me, your host Eileen Kerlin Walsh. Today we're going to revisit saving, financial planning, retirement planning for baby boomers and Gen Xers with our guest, Sean O'Shea. Sean O'Shea is a financial advisor. He works with Highpoint Planning Partners, and that's in Orland Park. Sean is a true Southsider. He graduated from St. Alexander's here in Palos Heights. He went to Marist and graduated also from University of Illinois. He is a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement planner consultant, and an accredited investment fiduciary. He has 15 years of experience helping families plan their financial security around their goals and dreams. So welcome, Sean, to our show.
Thank you for having me, Eileen.
You are so welcome. How about starting with telling us a little bit about your story?
Sure. A lot of it was in the introduction there. I've been doing this for almost 16 years now. It's been ever since graduating from U of I. It has been a road and building up the business over the last 15 years or so, doing financial planning and 401k plans for businesses.
And you came from right here. You grew up right here in Palos Heights.
Yes, I did. Actually, pretty deep family roots here in Palos Heights. As I mentioned, I went to St. Al's here with a whole big group of cousins. I've got about 40 first cousins, big Irish family. A lot of O'Shea's, O'Connell's, O'Brien's in there. But in Palos here, my family goes back pretty far on my mom's side. Actually, my grandmother's family, some of the earlier farming families in the community. My great-grandmother, Virginia, was actually the first teachers at a one-room schoolhouse on what would be 127th and Ridgeland right now, way back in the 1920s. So that family has largely stayed in the area. My grandma still lives on what would be part of that original farmland to this day.
And tell us, you have a great little story about growing up there and how your grandmother sowed the seeds of financial planning and investing in you and your cousins.
They did, thank you. Yes, it was definitely one of the first business ventures and first introduction to something along the lines of investing. So my grandparents' house, we shared a long property line, which was the Westgate Golf Course or Westgate Country Club years ago. And as my grandfather mowed the big lawn, he'd fill up 5-gallon buckets of all of the stray golf balls that came over the fence. So when my cousins and I would spend a lot of our summer days playing at Grandma's, and I don't know who originally had the idea, but we set up a table against the fence by the 17th hole, and we sold lemonade and bags of used golf balls to the golfers who came by. So we did that for a number of summers, for many times during the summer, and as a next step, financial lesson my grandparents had for us, they took the money, they let us pick amongst a number of stocks to invest in, and they put the money in a brokerage account with things like companies that we would have known when we were 10, 11 years old, Nike and McDonald's, and I'll let that sit and grow for some years up until just a few years ago. Grandma decided it was time to divvy up the proceeds, so we split it up 19 ways, and I think it helped out each of us. Some of my younger cousins made a few student loan payments with it, and I know that came right about the time where bill for my from the orthodontist for my daughter's braces came in. So that was something that paid off for all of us, and it was just a great lesson and good memory for myself
Yeah.
and my sibling.
And maybe
So,
that's why you became a financial planner. Who knows?
I'd like to say that was an early interest in it.
Yeah. So, what about this being a fiduciary? What does that mean in financial planning terms? And how does that separate you from other financial planners?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So, as you mentioned my credentials at the beginning, so certified financial planner and the accredited investment fiduciary. It's a CFP designation, and so I'm held as to put my clients' needs first. So it's the advice that I'm giving is more as a consultant, like the same side of the financial table as a client, as opposed to representing specific investments or having potential conflicts that of interest between, and I'm giving advice. So I have to give recommendations in the best interest of the clients as a CFP, and the portion of my business or work with businesses and 401k plans. That AIF accredited fiduciary designation, it really shows that in keeping up with that they have a real process for selecting the investments, making sure they're appropriate for the company, for the employees, making sure that they're competitive, and keeping the legal obligations that the companies have to their employees, helping them stay on top of that, their role as fiduciaries in that respect as well.
And I will tell you, Sean, we have a 401k, which I'm so proud to have at my office, and we probably have commitments legally. Every couple of months we are filling out forms. There's a lot of year-end commitments, so that is no small thing.
No.
You know, the responsibilities under the 401k. So speaking of the 401k, what about the Illinois Secure Plus? That's kind of a buzzword now for companies. So tell us what that means and how it impacts employers and employees.
Sure. So the Illinois Secure Choice, it's been a plan to be put in place over the last several years. It's been a little bit dragged out through 2020, but the intent of it is to give more Illinoisans, more people access to retirement savings through work. So there's been as it's been rolled out over the last few years, mandates for employers who have a certain number of employees to either have a 401k plan for themselves, a retirement plan for the company, or make use of this new Illinois state-run system where people would be you'd be required to make deposits on behalf of your employees into the state program. So there's been, I think it's great, the intent of it, and it will, for some business, it'll work easily to set up payroll contributions for their employees, but other employers who want to have a little more control over the plan and have more of the benefits of having a full 401k plan can work with someone like myself to design a plan around their company, take into account the type of business that they're in, the employees that they have, different pay scales, and how long the owners have been in place, and provide a number of other additional benefits, tax-wise, particularly.
So am I hearing that the Illinois Secure Plan may not be perfect, but it's better than nothing for, and some option for small companies?
Absolutely. I think anything that will give more people the chance to set aside a little bit of savings each paycheck will, it may take some years, but that does add up.
Especially for younger employees who have the benefit of time on their side.
Definitely.
Right? So is there a typical investment strategy? Do you have is there a strategy that everyone follows? I mean, how unique and individual is it? And how do you prepare your clients for retirement?
Sure. Okay, great. So as far as working with individuals and setting up an investment strategy that's more hands-on and actually picking the allocations and things, as opposed to in the 401k plan, just setting up the menu and letting people kind of pick it themselves. When I'm working with someone in defining an investment plan, there are some general allocations, some general models that I would start off with based on things like their age and what the money is going to be used for, whether it's something 10 years out, like planning for college, or 30 plus years down the road, like planning for retirement. So there's a base place where I would start in terms of just building a diversified portfolio. I'm not an advisor who tries to make new trades every day and pick the next hot stock for the coming week. It's much more of a long-term approach. So I'd say no one has the exact same plan, but it starts with a foundation of having a real set of rules in place on how to build those portfolios for each individual.
And how have you helped your clients navigate the last 6 months? We're starting to climb back up now, but right up until really the beginning of January, it was kind of scary. So how do you calm the storms, the fears during those dips in the market?
Well, at 6 months, I almost have to pull it back to the last 2-3 years have been very emotional for people investing, coming through the COVID crash and a huge rebound for almost 2 years. This past year has been definitely challenging. The last 6 months, coming off of the bottom of the end of September, making up some ground, and now having a rough February, it has been challenging. From a general standpoint, again, as I was saying, it makes a big difference if you're someone who is using their portfolio to, say, take income from right now, if they're in retirement, or if they have a long way for it to grow. So those younger folks, just have to encourage them to keep saving and weather through the ups and downs. And even those folks who felt like they missed out on some of that 2020, 2021 boom are getting a chance to buy those same investments at lower prices. But a big part of my job is helping people understand about where they're invested and why we have certain investments set up, and keep the bigger picture focus, and know that what may be on the news every day is not technically what's going on in your portfolio. And the day-to-day changes in the markets are likely to have a small impact on the bigger picture ability to, say, retire at the age that they'd like.
Yeah. And what mistakes do you see people make? I mean, do you see people pulling out their money during a downturn like last year?
That is one of the bigger things. And it does come up. Clients ask if it's the time to get out, or I think it tends to come after we've had periods of, say, a few statements where the values aren't as high as they were at the height a year or two ago. People can get to a point where it feel like, I don't want to see any lower numbers. Let's just pull money out, and we'll avoid having the stress of that. The question, or at least the next decision that someone have to make after doing that, is when they would get back in. And if you're constantly or repeatedly over business cycle to business cycle taking your money out after it's gone down and then waiting for stock prices to be higher, you're buying in, you're doing the opposite of what we try to do in investing. You're selling low and buying high, selling low again and buying high. So it is a challenge, and I can't remove all the emotions from mine or other people's financial decisions, but I try to do my best to keep them focused on the bigger picture.
The long picture, the long view, the big picture, for sure. Sean, what separates you in the industry? What's your unique parking spot?
Oh, yeah. Well, there are a lot of very qualified people who, like myself, have some certificates and certifications and letters after their name. I think at this point, having done this, as long as I've done it, I've found a good, I'd say the types of clients that I work with and the way that I'm able to dig deep into a more comprehensive financial planning. Those individuals, particularly the business owner clients that I work with, have a lot more questions, a lot more complexities when it comes to things like taxes and estate planning, and look to me to take care of some things for them that are either very complicated or time consuming. So I think that my experience with working with some bigger businesses in the 401k space also helps me understand not only the smaller entrepreneur like myself, but also bigger companies and bigger questions and issues.
Yeah. And you mentioned estate planning. So since you mentioned it, how do you see encouraging your clients to get wills, trust, powers of attorney into place? How does that, how do you, and why do you encourage that, and how do you see that work towards the retirement goals?
So as part of our comprehensive financial planning program and the steps that we go through as I bring in a new client and understand their financial position, we look at all of these different areas beyond just the investing and how much they're saving, but also what can they fine tune in terms of taxes, and making sure that everything that they've built up by doing all of these other things right, that those assets that they've accumulated, they go to the people and organizations that they'd like to see them go to once they're not around to use them anymore. So it is I'd say at first, estate planning is a checklist item. We always do a beneficiary review. I don't know if you'd be surprised, but most people would be surprised about it's outdated and incorrect beneficiaries that I find at folks' accounts as well. And that part of that also encouraging people to look at getting a trust, or at the very least having the wills, power of attorneys, making some of those difficult decisions. I think it's difficult for some people to talk about or think about who should take care of my children if we weren't here. So people do put those off. But I make sure that it is, if I am working with someone who is putting off taking those steps, to make sure that it's something we repeatedly bring up and go over. And if they're not working with an estate planning attorney, introduce them to one of the ones that we work with in our practice. I find that as a big value when I am working with and able to coordinate with the other professionals that clients work with. Yes,
yes. I always say it's the big three are the estate planning attorney, the financial planner, and the CPA to really help you manage your affairs and your money. Sean, what's the most rewarding part of what you do?
Well, the most rewarding, there are day to day, every once in a while, you get just a great feeling from a client, or whether it's just that I know I've gone a little further to get something done for someone, and they tell me how much they appreciate it. It's when I can do something where I feel like it's not only using the best of my experience and knowledge and expertises and other resources to do something, but if I'm able to go a little further personally to take care of something, and clients who share how much they appreciate it, that's what really makes me feel good about it.
And now a little of the man behind the financial planner, Sean. So here you stand. I don't know if you told us a little bit about your family, but I know you still have younger children, school-aged children.
Yes.
You've had this rewarding practice for all these years. So what's your view in the world now? Where do you stand? Have you figured it all out?
I figured it all out.
Okay,
haven't you figured
no
it
mystery
out?
left. So
No.
tell us what your big take on the world is.
Sure. Okay, that's a big question.
It is.
Well, as you mentioned, I do have a 7-year-old son, Reed, and a 17-year-old daughter, Rory, who's getting ready to go off to school in the fall. So, and my wife, Megan, we've been married. We just celebrated our anniversary on New Year's Eve. So gosh, as far as my view on the world, I think it's evolving, but very much concerned for my immediate family and my bigger family, like those cousins and aunts and uncles and everyone I talked about previously. Concerns about sending my little girl out into the big world, college next year. I personally, and maybe it's one of the reasons I got into being an entrepreneur is that I could make sure they make time for the family commitments and keeping those bonds strong that are closest to us.
And having your child head off to college, which I'm just a couple years ahead of you there, the sense that we hope we've done it right because they're cooked. They're done. They still need lots of guidance, lots of our resources over the coming years, but there's a sense that we hope we've done it right because off they go, and now they're going to have to use all those skills we gave them to navigate the day-by-day decisions of life by themselves. Yeah. So how about if we wrap up, Sean, with a favorite poem or quote or some words to live by?
Sure. Well, I'm glad that she did ask me that. I do have a quote that I've written down on a Post-it note on my desk that was from a poem. The quick line is, "A promise made is a debt unpaid." It comes from a poem that's meaningful to me because my grandfather used to read to all of us and all those cousins. It's called The Cremation of Sam McGee. And as an adult is when I pull out that single quote, but the poem, it's a long story. It's about men in around 1900 Alaska gold rush period, mushing their dogs across the wilderness, searching for gold. And the protagonist, the narrator poem, at one point has to set aside his pursuit of finding that gold in order to make good on a promise that he made, the last wishes promise to a friend of his on the trail. And as I said, I always enjoyed the poem as a child, but pulled out the promise made is a debt unpaid quote as it relates to my business, in that it is a service business, and fulfilling commitments to people day to day is a big, if not the biggest part of what I do. So if I can fulfill those promises, I think I'm always doing a good job in some major respect. Absolutely,
you really are, Sean. And viewers, when I asked for some ideas yesterday for the show from Sean, and he told me how much The Cremation of Sam McGee, that poem, had meant to him, I just immediately called my sister, because that Cremation of Sam McGee, my father also used to read that. He would recite it to us, and we loved to listen to it. It's a beautiful poem, a long, epic poem. Yes. Just great words and a lot of humor in it. And we associate that with growing up and listening to my father. I never isolated out that one line that you have isolated out, and I think that is such a resonance that a promise made is a debt unpaid. So Sean and I were good friends and good co-workers before, and I feel we're bonded to The Cremation of Sam McGee. Sean, that was wonderful.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell our viewers how to get a hold of you if they would like to know more about your financial services?
Okay. So again, with Highpoint Planning Partners in Orland Park, I can provide my email address maybe to the show here, but it's just sean.o'shea@lpl.com, and phone number to the office is 708-789-9518. I'd be happy to answer questions folks have, for businesses that have questions about the Illinois Secure Choice. I'm just glad that you invited me on the show today.
And we were glad to have you, Sean. Thanks so much for your insight. Thank you, viewers, for watching, and we will see you next time on Where the Road Rises. Goodbye.